Okay, we're back, and it's COMP308. It's week 6, lesson 6, part 2. Part 1 we did yesterday and a bit of lab time. We're going to do some more lab time today. So there's only going to be one part of this lesson, one part 1 and part 2. We talked yesterday about jQuery Mobile, and again, I'm just going to go there again. I'm just here on the Mac side, but it's the same thing. Again, you download normally and use jQuery Mobile, and if you want to know about how to make things go, you want to look at the demo, right? This is where we keep our documentation, or they keep it for jQuery Mobile. Yesterday we covered things like a little bit of forms, navigation. We talked about those kind of things as well, and the things you need for the exam, which is the midterm, which is going to be a checkbox radio button. So here's the radio button, what they look like. We're going to on your exam, you're going to have radio buttons, okay? And what I'm going to ask you to do on the exam with JavaScript, this is where your JavaScript can come into play, is tell me, add up these choices that I give you for the radio buttons, and tell me from a tally perspective how many choices that I pick. Which of the choices I pick, they have values. I might have several sheets of radio buttons that you go through, as an example. Tell me if I add them up, how do I tally? How do I create a variable in JavaScript? How do I access an element, right? And we're going to talk about how to access the radio button today, right? So I'm going to show you how to do that. And then how do I get data from the radio button and put it together? How do I hold that data from the radio button that I get, right? How do I modify that data, right? So the radio button is almost like an element that you're going to see, right? We'll talk about that. So radio button is going to be one. You're also going to need to use jQuery Mobile to kind of put things together, right? And the other thing I talked about is you're going to need to put together a dialog, right? So there's different kinds of widgets, right? And if I go down, there's the pop-up widget. If you look at the pop-up widget has another one, if I'm not wrong. Is it pop-up or pages or panels? I can't remember which one it is. Dialog. So if I go to dialog page, this is the one I want. What a dialog looks like. A dialog looks like this, right? So that's what I'm going to ask you to do. But actually, all this is, right, if you look at the source of this thing, right, of the dialog, is really, instead of it's a button, and what it does is this designs what the button looks like. But really what I want to kind of go to is, here's a right button to close the dialog. So here I got it, right? Here's no close button. There's no close button for the dialog. Okay, I got it. No close button. And then I can chain dialogues. There's different ways of doing things. But I'm going to ask you to make a dialog that pops up some information. The information that I want you to pop up is the stuff that you're going to get. You're going to tally. So you're going to make a tally of something. Can't tell you everything about the exam. I'm going to get you to tally something, right? I'm going to make it appear in the dialog. But all the dialog is, if you think about it, is just a page that has has a dialog. It looks like a dialog. So data dialog is equal to true. You're going to add this to any page and to make it a dialog. Okay, so we'll look at what that looks like in a second. I'll do that with you today. Right? I also showed you a quick fix website. If instead of you hand bombing everything yesterday, I said that Codiqa is a really good place to go. So I would check this out, Codiqa, and it's codiqa.com. And it says, hey, this is the easiest way to build jQuery mobile apps, the easy way, right? And it says, get started now or try the demo. Let's try the demo. I showed you this yesterday. And if you look at it, it has some basic components. And what you can do, of course, is you can delete these. Let's delete all these pages, right? So here I'm going to delete these pages. They just have some example pages here, right? And let's see if I can delete this one too. No. I have to at least have one page. So I go home, and now I can delete this one, right? Yeah. Okay, so here's my home page right here. And if you notice, my home page has some buttons down here, right? I don't like this. I'm going to get rid of them. So I have nothing in my home page now, right? Here's my home page is empty. And I can drag and drop. So I have a header, like we did this yesterday, right? And my header, this for my home page, I'm just outlining everything here. I'm going to make this, let's say I make this home, whatever. And inside my header, I also want to put, because I'm designing my app as an example. So I want to have some kind of navigation. So here's my nav bar, and I want to put it inside of my header. Here's what it looks like. I want to add a couple more buttons, right? And my first button, so here's my first button. I'm going to make this, home as an example. Let's say home. And my second button, and that's going to link to my home page. My second button, I'm going to make it so that it goes, it's not going to be called button. It's going to be called, let's say, about me, or bio. Let's say it might be the better way to say it, bio, or about me, whatever you chose as part of your website, right? So let's call it about me just to make it simple. About me. And it doesn't link to a page right now. I don't have another page, so I'm going to make another one really quickly. I'm going to call it about, right? Here's my about page. And this is where this is. So here's my about me. It's going to link to, if I click on this, my about me page is going to, I can program it all here. It's going to link to my about page. There it is, right? And here's my button, my next button. And this button here is going to link to my contact page. Contact me, right? I don't have a contact me page. I'm going to add it in. Contact. Here's my contact page. So my home page, I got a couple slots for about and contact. If I go back to my home page and click this, I can make it point to my contact page. I'm programming it all in. I can even choose an icon, right? So I can say for my home page, for my first icon, I can choose a standard icon, like the home icon, right? Here it is. And it puts it in there. And I can do the same thing for my about me icon, my about me. We notice what we did. We kind of made it so that it's some kind of a gear or something like that, or a check, something that makes sense. Let's make a star. Oh, that's the, oh, sorry, I'm making the contact. Sorry, I want to make the contact info. That makes sense, right? Sorry, clicked on the wrong one. Right, and I want to make my about me page. It's going to be like some kind of check mark or star, let's say. So I have 3 buttons up here, and hey, I've done all this work, and you know what? Let's pull down a footer. Here's my footer, and my footer, I want to make it fixed, like we saw yesterday. And you know what? I want to get this code instead of me programming this by myself. I want to get this code somehow. So I click on this little button on the right side. As it comes up, I got all my code. Nice and freaking simple, right? As opposed to me doing it on my own. So I'm going to take all this stuff, copy it the way it is. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to go back into Visual Studio. And here, I'm just going to minimize this for a second. And I'm just going to create a new site. I'm going to close this solution down. I'll make a new solution now for today, project. I'm going to make it a web project, right? But remember, I had jQuery Mobile installed last time, right? So I should have, if I don't have already, I have a jQuery Mobile kind of template, right, for us. And if I don't have one, I can simply make one. But let's just check if I have one right now. I might have actually a previous boilerplate that I was using before, which is fine. But let's say I don't have one. So I'm just going to make a new application. I'm going to call this COMP308, and we'll go lesson 6 because I don't think I have that on my GitHub. Let me just check before I continue. And I'll go to repositories and I'll type in COMP308. Oh, I do have a jQuery Mobile, and that's definitely one that I want to use, right? Because I want to update this one. So let me just, instead of creating a new one, that's good, Tom. I'll just open one that I have, right? And I'll update it. So let's cancel this. Sorry, I did this yesterday, and I'm fading today. I'm still kind of under the weather, so you'll have to excuse me, please. Okay, so COMP308. I go back down here. jQuery Mobile is the one I'm gonna open, and this is the stuff we were working on yesterday. And just to keep it simple, right now I have my index.html that has all my styling. There's all my styling and everything in here. I'm going to duplicate this thing. I'm going to duplicate my index.html. I'm going to copy, and in here I'm going to paste. And what it does, of course, is it copies the same thing, just calls it a copy of. I'm going to call this one, just to make it different, I'm going to copy and make it called, I'll call this index2, just to show you the difference between one and the other. And inside where it says homepage wrapper, inside between this stuff, I'll add in the stuff that I just got from jQuery Mobile, right? So, or from Codica. So here, my jQuery is it's empty, right? And I'm going to just kind of hit Control V. Oh. Copy. And if it doesn't work, of course, I can go back. There's Control V. Right, so this is all the stuff that I took. And if I was to run this page, let's see if this will work today, index HTML2, right? Then it'll show me what I've kind of put together. Now it's red because I changed yesterday I also changed my theming so that it's a red theme. Right? But if you notice, all the code I just put together, my footer, my home, my about me, and contact me page, they're all there. Right? I don't have anything in my about me or contact me page, and that's why when I click on these things, they don't do anything right now. Right? But again, if I look at this code here, and this is my, I'll put this in here. Here's my home page wrapper. I just got this right off Codica, by the way. Right? So this is my home page wrapper, and if you notice it says home. Now the ID here is page 5. I could change this to make it home as well. Right? But let's leave it the way it is right now, because if you notice the data transition for page 5, page 6, page 7, right? These are for the, this is how the UL and LI look like for my nav bar. Now it's big and ugly, but it doesn't really matter. It works, right? I could always reformat this thing later on. If you notice, my content would end down here, right? So here's my data position is equal to fixed, my footer. So this is page 1, my home page wrapper, and I got it from this. So if it's not complete for me, if I'm not happy with what I've got here, and let's say, for example, if I go to my home page, click on my home page, and if you notice my title is home, right, but my ID for the page is page 5, I can change that. So home, right, I can save that. I can go to about and make this about. All the structure that I want for each of these pages, right, I can structure the way I want. I only have these 3 pages right now that I'm going to show you, right? And if I want to copy elements from one to the other, that's okay, because I can just simply do the same things. Once I have one page and I put the structure for the second pages in, like for example, if I go back here and I go to my home page, right? If you notice my home right now, it says, is this initially active? And I'm going to say yes. So my button is active. My transition for when I go home is a fade. I wanted to do a flip. Here's my flip, and I want to do the same thing for my about page. I want to do the transition. I want to add a transition of a flip instead of a fade for each one. So all that extra code we talked about last week, right? I don't have to do it by hand. I don't have to hand bomb it, right? I can simply use kind of for my structure, I can use this, and then I can modify what's here. Okay, so here I've got all this as an example. And now when I go to my code, right, now there's nothing in the middle. And I kind of did this yesterday where I added in, because part of my design, so for my assignment number 2, if you look at assignment number 2, which is, I think I gave it to you 5, right? Yeah. So if I look at this, assignment 2, right, for assignment 2, this is the framework that it looks like. This is the way I'm suggesting you make it. I've got 3 buttons and a couple of things, projects and services for my images. And I got a copyright thing down here in the bottom of where my section is, and then a full site link if I want to, right? So for me to do that, to kind of stay within the same wireframe that I created, if I wanted to do that, you can make something that looks like something suitable for you, right? I have to kind of put in a grid. So here's my grid. I can put that in there because there's a jQuery mobile grid that I can use. Here it is. My grid has 2 columns and 1 row, which makes sense. And inside there, I can drop in an image. Here's my image. It's going to be a placeholder image right here in this part of the grid, right? And for now, let's make this a percentage of 100%. So this is 100% of this side of the grid. And I'll do the same thing for the other image. Put it in here. And I'll make this a percentage of 100%, right? So I got my 2 images here, image 1 and image 2. And I can provide IDs for them. So for example, maybe this ID is my projects ID, right? A projects image, sorry. Right? And this ID here for this image will be my services image. These are all placeholders, right? So I'm doing all my programming here, right? So I don't have to do it later, right? And down here, I'm going to have some kind of slider, right? Now, I don't have a slider control here, but I could implement some kind of divider or another area, like another grid or whatever. I'll leave it blank for now because there's no need to do all that kind of stuff, right? I can also put a list view, some kind of divider like this. If I want to put a divider in there, just put a divider that looks like this. There's my divider, right? And I don't have to give it a class. And when I go to my code, I get all this code now. My code's changed, right? If you notice, my ID is home, right? I've got a bunch of other things in here too. If you ever see any inline styling like this, div width is 100, height is 200, I'm going to ask you to pull this out and put it into your own CSS file. That's easy to do. So for now, let's just leave it the way it is. One thing I don't like also is my footer. My footer should have a kind of a, my text in my footer should be like copyright, right? So I'll just leave it the way it is, copyright 2015. And of course, you can put in the copyright symbol if you want, right? I'll click away. And then I go to my code. And when I go to my code, there it is. My copyright's in there. So I'm going to kind of select all this stuff now and replace. Of course, I did that. I'm going to replace all this, the stuff I get here with the code that I have here, right? So I'm just going to replace all this code because this is for my home page. Okay, here's my code. I'm just going to go paste. There it is. Let's take a look at this now. I'll just refresh the page I got. What's that? Back here? I probably just didn't grab it. Still worked. Because HTML is very flexible, right? So, but you're right, yeah, that would have been bad, right? So there's my ID, and sorry, let me just refresh again one more time. And if you notice, it looks like this. I've got my images, I've got my copyright, and it looks like, you know, kind of closer to what I want it to do. Like these aren't clickable yet, but I will make them clickable. I can make my home, about me, or contact me. They don't go anywhere right now because I don't have those other pages. Let's get those pages in place. So I want to kind of minimize this for a second, go back. Now the code is going to be all the same. The only thing I don't want is this stuff in here. It's going to be a little bit different, right? And my contact page is definitely going to be different. So let's go back and do a couple of things here. Now, there's a couple of things I can do. If you notice, it says duplicate page, right? Which is probably the safe thing to do. I have these placeholders, but I'm going to get rid of them. So I'm just going to go, because I just use them for as links for my page, right? So I'm going to get rid of them. Oh, I got rid of the wrong one. You get what I'm saying. But basically what I would do is create my other pages here and then load it. So let's say I want to do my contact page next. Again, I could use the same thing. I can do it manually by doing my header. So drag and drop my header, or I can duplicate the page if I'm smart. And I wasn't smart just now. Come on. Yeah, nothing's added in. How about this? Yeah. Let's just add a new page. Home. Contact. And reload the bloody thing. How about that? And of course, it reloads all the other pages, which I can get rid of all of them. No, you have to duplicate. Yeah, I got that Visual Studio. Oh, I can't copy back here. If you had access and you paid for Codica instead of getting it free like I'm stealing it right now, right? Then you had no problem. You can do everything back and forth. But I'm not doing it back and forth. I'm doing it by copying the code, right? So here I'm just going to rename this page. Instead of home, I'm going to call it contact because I made a mistake. No. You can design as many pages as you want. I just made a mistake. That's why. That's the problem. It was me. I clicked the wrong page to delete, which is not good. Okay, good. Now I should be able to drag and drop. There we go. So here's my header, and this one will say contact. So here's, change this here, contact me, and the ID for the page. If you look at the name of the page itself is contact, but it's page 1. I'll call it contact just to say with what I did before, right? It says swatch C. I'll leave it the way it is. I'm not going to change it. And then, of course, my page is going to also have some kind of nav bar, which will be similar to what I had before. I'll put a nav bar button in there, but but I'm not going to configure it. I'm just going to replace it with what I had from the other page for now, because I made a mistake. And the footer bar is going to be there as well, right? And I'll leave that in there as well. The surrounding stuff is not what I care for. It's this form I want to do. So if I want to go in there and grab a form, like I did yesterday, because it's a contact page, I could put in there things like an input button inside my form. Right, here's my input with no title, but the name will be the name of the form will be name. My placeholder will be enter your name, which will be inside the form text itself, and then maybe an email. I'll add that in there too for text input, right in there. All right, so here's take away the title and put in the name will be email, and in the placeholder text I'll say enter your email address. And by the way, the input type you can specify here as well. Like for example, this one is a text, and this one you can actually specify as a type of email. So it'll only allow proper emails to come through. I'll do a little bit of validation for you as well. That's part of jQuery Mobile's framework, right? So that's what that does. And of course, I need some kind of submit button, right? So I'm going to kind of go down here and get the submit button and put it in, right? So here's submit. And there's different ways I can do this. I can do it inline, which is yes. So a little submit button here. And I can say, is it mini? Yes or no. My text is submit. My default swatch I can choose. I can choose if I want an icon. I can add an icon, right? For the button. I don't need to add a button, an icon for this one. It makes it pretty simple. So your name and your email address is cool. And if I want a text area, right? So I want to put a text area before that. So I'll move that submit button down here, let's say, or the text area up here. There it is. The text area for my title, I'm going to get rid of my title. And inside the name is going to be text area, right? So I can access it, right? I can also add an ID and stuff to all these things. So for example, my ID would be text area, right? And my placeholder, it says, please enter your message, right, for contact me, whatever it's going to be, right? So you enter your email, enter your name, enter your message, and then of course I can say the same thing here. So my ID is name, right, and this one's email. So I'm building out my form without actually doing anything, right? I'm not really, and if I go to code down here, I get all this extra code now. So I can drag and drop this code. I can drag and drop all this code here, right? And I can make this my code for my contact page wrapper. So here's my code. I'm going to put that in here, right? Control V, bam. And when I go up here, I can say this is my contact page wrapper, right? On the outside, it's called contact. The title, data control title is contact. Contact me. I want to get rid of my nav bar because this nav bar is incorrect. So this nav bar here, where I have LIs and all that kind of stuff, this is part of my header. So I just want to get rid of this piece of my nav bar because I know this is incorrect. I messed up. Otherwise, you don't have to do this. And I'll go up here to my nav bar where the other nav bar is, right? So here's my data role nav bar. I want to grab this tag, these tags right here, right? And I'm going to copy them and paste them in my nav bar right here. Because it's the same nav bar, right? The same data transitions and all that. And I didn't use a UI button active, which I can put in there because I stated that I could do that within any of the themes. So for example, now I'm on my contact info, so I can say class, right, is equal to UI kind of button active. Oops. Yeah. What is it again for my index? Yeah, it could be. You're right. UI button active. I just can't remember. And UI state persist, which is what I put in there. So UI state persist, which is what, it doesn't come up, but that's the one. So I want to take this class, UI button active and UI state persist, and I want to include it, of course, up here with my other one, which I didn't have for my home button. Right? So here's my UI button active, UI state persist. And when I run this thing, if I didn't make any mistakes, I have my home button that's highlighted, and when I click on my contact me page, it comes up with my contact information, right? That I got off of the Codica website. My footer's wrong, but I can change that in a second, right? But here's my email. Look how good it is for validation. So here's my name. My email address has to be a valid email address. So Tom. If I go like this and I go on my message, hello, and I click submit, it's going to say, whoa, please include a @ sign, automatic validation for you, built into jQuery Mobile. So I go tom@example.com, and now I can submit, and it's going to take me back to my home page, right? So the submit button, which is all I need you to do for your project. I don't need it to actually be a working form right now, because we're going to try and do that when we get into the MongoDB side of things. How do I connect my front end to a back end that has a database in some kind of form, right? So for now, let's leave it the way it is. That's fine. Here's my About Me page. My About Me page is empty. I can't go there, but my Contact Me page works and my home page works. Those are good things. I got to change my copyright statement on the bottom of my contact page. And if I go down there and do that, I can say it's a simple fix, right? Because this is not much to change. So I'll just change instead of footer, it'll say, I can say ampersand as well. I want to use this ampersand copy. Ampersand copy, right? Copyright 2015, right? Let's check how that looks with my ampersand copy in there. It's just the copy symbol is what that brings us up, right? So if I go back to here, and I'll do the same thing, copy and paste that in there, and then when I run it, I refresh it, and now if you look at it, I've got that copyright symbol on the bottom, right? 2015. If I go to Contact Me page is there. I haven't done my About Me page yet, but I don't need to right now. And if you notice, this field here is stretchable, but in real life, on an actual device, it won't allow you to stretch this field because you can't stretch this in the device. It'll just keep typing and open this up for you. If I type a long message, here is my extremely long and annoying, useless message. It's going to keep going. It's going to open it up as I type, right? And of course, it'll bring up my keyboard. That's the other thing that comes up, right? So my keyboard will hide a bunch of this stuff. So this is something from a design consideration. My keyboard is going to pop up here, right? When I use my iOS device or my Android device, it's going to pop up, and it's going to overlay what I'm typing. So it'll be very small space that I'll be looking at. The other stuff will move away. It'll pop things over, and it'll move things up. That's what happens. But as you can see, it does highlight this. This is a natural highlight that comes with jQuery Mobile custom default styling. I don't do anything here. I didn't style this thing in any way. It just did it on its own. So Codica, definitely a fast way. I recommend highly that you use it for your exam. It's going to save you a ton of typing and errors. It'll stop you from making any errors when you kind of create your jQuery Mobile pages. And you can simply drag and drop at least the structure of your pages to create your new project. That's one thing you want to try and do. And at the same time, what the next piece for you guys, because you're going to build out your assignment 2 today, right, is take the content from assignment 2 or assignment 1 and put it into the assignment 2 pages where you think it's necessary. Right? So wherever you see, if I said bio as an example, or a project page or a slider or anything like that, take those things. If you made a slider that's compatible as an example with touch, you might be able to use the slider by reformatting the slides, right? And the other thing we talked about yesterday, which I want to reiterate today, is the images that you used on your desktop site may not work on this mobile site. So you may have to scrunch them up, use your favorite image editor program, and cut the images down to what they should be. Don't scrunch them down, like to make them skewed looking and ugly, but actually take a sample of the image that you're taking that makes sense for the mobile design and put that in there instead. instead of trying to resize it with the program. Because remember, when we resize it automatically, it takes a lot more cycles than if we do it outside of the program in the graphics environment. And we rename the image as something like logo-mobile, logo-desktop, logo-tablet for different sizes for, maybe you make it a large, medium, and small. Logo small, logo medium, logo large, right? Which goes along with your Foundation or Bootstrap as well as with jQuery Mobile. Okay, so Codiqa is the way to do it. That's for sure the way to do it. So let's take a brief break. It's 11:12, and then we'll when we come back, we'll talk about how to use JavaScript to access some of these things we put in here.